We often think of institutions, especially ones built on faith and community, as, well, predictable, stable.
Solid.
Yeah, solid. But what happens when that familiar surface, cracks? And you find a story underneath that's way more complex, maybe even troubling.
That's exactly what we're looking into today. A story like that.
We're doing a deep dive into the timeline of Ron Harding's experiences within the International Churches of Christ, the ICC. Specifically, his journey as a whistleblower.
Yeah, and it's not just about listing dates and events. We're really trying to pull out the patterns, understand what it all means, the significance.
Exactly. We've got this really comprehensive timeline laid out here. It charts everything from Ron Harding's first unsettling discoveries right through to all the repercussions of what he did.
And it covers a long span of time. We're talking 2013 right up to April 2025. Over a decade.
It's a lot to unpack. So our mission here is to kind of cut through that complexity. We want to pull out the most critical moments, the themes that keep popping up.
Right. Give you a clear path, a shortcut almost, to understanding what Mr. Harding went through and maybe the bigger picture implications for institutions like this.
Okay, so let's start where the timeline starts. Back in 2013. What was the initial spark? The first discovery.
Well, the timeline kicks off with something pretty disturbing in 2013. Ron Harding apparently found concerning images on Kip McKean's computer.
Okay, concerning images. But the detail about the naming convention seems really significant.
It really does. The way the files were named, it seems, link them directly to McKean's assistants, based on resemblance.
Wow. Okay, so not just random files, but something that suggests a deliberate, maybe exploitative pattern right from the start.
That's what it points towards, yeah. And after this discovery, McKean apparently apologized. He promised to confess specifically to his wife, Elena, Tony Untelen, and these world sector leaders.
Right. The world sector leaders, they oversee big chunks of the church globally, so that would be a pretty high-level confession.
Exactly. It suggests, a commitment to accountability. But the timeline shows something different later.
Uh-oh.
Tony Untelen apparently told Harding later it was handled. But the key thing is that big leadership meeting, it seems it never actually happened.
So a promise of transparency just didn't materialize.
Seemingly not. A promise made, perhaps, but not followed through on, at least not in the way it was presented.
And you have to wonder if that initial incident, even without a clear resolution, started to affect how the Hardings were seen in the church.
It looks that way. The timeline notes that between 2013 and 2015, this narrative started spreading. That the Hardings weren't supportive of leadership, maybe weren't effective in their ministry.
Whispers and doubts. Sounds like laying the groundwork for future problems.
Very possibly. It likely contributed to the challenges they faced down the line.
Okay, let's jump to May 2015. Things seemed to shift significantly then, as they were getting ready for a new leadership role.
Yeah, just as they were about to lead a new region, members in that region were told the Hardings' marriage was broken.
Broken.
Wow.
And they were specifically told not to have personal conversations with them.
That's isolating.
Extremely. Yeah. Then, when they actually arrived in June 2015, they were told directly, your marriage is broken. You're unfit for ministry.
What a welcome. That paints a really bleak picture, almost like setting them up to fail.
It certainly suggests a culture of judgment, not support.
Yeah.
And it got worse.
How so?
The team that moved with them, 10 people meant to support their ministry, they were just dispersed, sent elsewhere.
Pulled the rug out from under them.
Pretty much. And then came these things called life talk meetings.
Right. The timeline uses a really strong phrase for these. Gestapo style. That's chilling.
It is. Very strong language. Apparently they were put in separate meetings, Ron surrounded by men, Tracy by women, and just relentlessly questioned about their marriage, even about their conversions.
Questioning their faith itself.
Seems like it. The Gestapo-style description, it really highlights the intense pressure, maybe an abuse of power, a lack of any kind of fair process.
And this wasn't just a one-off thing. No, almost weekly. From June 2015 to January 2016, nearly weekly meetings with the Kernans and the Blackwells.
Constantly being called troublemakers.
Yes. Accused of being troublemakers. Imagine living under that kind of constant scrutiny, that negative framing. Must have been incredibly hostile.
So did Ron Harding try to push back against this narrative?
Yeah.
Especially with Blackwell.
He did. In September 2015, he kept confronting Blackwell, saying, I hear you don't want me here. Blackwell denied it.
But Hardings suspected otherwise.
Yes, and this is where Harding says he compromised his own integrity. He was at McKean's house, searched McKean's emails,
Oh, wow.
and found them. Emails confirming Blackwell did feel negatively about their marriage, their leadership.
So he had proof. What happened when he showed McKean?
McKean offered to move them anywhere else in L.A., but Harding refused.
He wanted to sort it out with Blackwell.
Yeah, he wanted to resolve it directly. And the timeline does say that eventually, over time, Ron Harding and Corey Blackwell did manage to reconcile.
Okay, so some resolution there eventually, but you can imagine the trust was probably shattered at that point.
Definitely damaged. Then, January 2016, another interaction, this time with Tim Kernan.
What happened there?
Kernan tells Harding, basically, everyone wants you fired.
Just like that.
Pretty much. They had a long talk, and Harding decided, in the end, to trust Kernan. It just shows the complex, kind of murky relationships and power plays he was constantly navigating.
Like walking through a minefield. But amidst all this conflict, there were some positive family moments too, right?
There were. Their oldest son was baptized in April 2016. Harding also started leading the Southland region that month.
Okay.
And their younger son, Dylan, he was baptized in August 2016.
But then Dylan made a move that seems important later on.
Yes, in October 2016, Dylan was 16. He was asked if he'd move to Westwood, get trained in teen ministry leadership.
Okay.
He moved out in November 2016. And the timeline highlights this. He never permanently returned home after that.
That feels significant. And the Hardings, their roles kept changing.
Yeah, they were given leadership of a super region in December 2016, Southland and AMS combined.
Super region sounds big.
It is. Multiple regions. So it suggests some level of confidence in them, despite all their earlier friction.
But then 2017, those initial concerns from 2013 seem to pop back up.
They do. Harding was helping McKean forwarding an email, and he noticed emails in McKean's sent folder.
Yeah.
The subject lines exactly matched the file names of those concerning images he found back in 2013.
Whoa. So not an isolated incident. The alarm bells must have been deafening.
You'd have to assume so, yeah, suggesting the issue wasn't resolved at all.
Around the same time, the timeline mentions Harding having surgery and getting money from McKean.
Correct. He got $8,000 apparently from McKean's discretionary fund, but with no warning, no discussion, just appeared.
Strange.
Then their super region leadership got transferred, supposedly to make space for someone else, so the Hardings moved to Orange County.
And during all this, their son Dylan was moving around too. And something bad happened.
Yeah, multiple moves for Dylan. And then he was assaulted in Long Beach after a late-night Bible study. Really tragically.
Just a period of intense instability for them personally and professionally.
It really sounds like it. Then, 2018, they're asked to move again, Atlanta this time, to plant a new church.
That's a huge undertaking. High expectations, presumably.
Huge. And it came with its own problems right away.
Like what?
Their team was smaller than promised, 9 members short. And the budget, the financial support, was way less than they expected for the first year.
Not a great start.
And it continued. Other leaders from established churches apparently promised to send mission team members later in the year, August to December 2018.
And they didn't.
Nope. They declined to send them. So that lack of support from the wider organization just piled on the pressure in Atlanta.
Wow. But they still managed to plant the Atlanta mission team in December 2018.
They did, despite all that. Shows some serious resilience commitment.
Absolutely. Then, 2019. More discoveries in the church's files.
Yeah, he was helping format this document, The Crown of Thorns, plan McKean's big strategy for world evangelism.
Okay.
He accessed it via Dropbox, the church account. And within the admin dashboard, he found more pictures.
Yep.
Similar to the 2013 ones.
Again. So he took a screenshot, documented it.
Yes, took a screenshot then.
And the family dynamics, the church stuff, it kept intertwining, especially with their son Dylan. Or was it Tim Kernan Jr.?
Their son Tim Kernan Jr. was baptized in 2019. But yes, around then, there was confusion about Dylan maybe moving to Atlanta to help them.
Conflicting messages.
Yeah. Kernan even apparently said at one point, "It's above my pay grade," suggesting he didn't have the authority or clarity on the decision either.
And then there was that incident in Miami at a conference. January 2019, feeling excluded.
Definitely. All the other leaders in their new world sector got introduced, got gifts, standard stuff.
But not the Hardings.
Nope. Just left out. And apparently, Raul Moreno and Lou Jack Martinez saw it happen and spoke to the world sector leader about it.
So it was noticed. It wasn't just them feeling slighted. Others saw it as an issue.
Seems that way. And it wasn't the only tough leadership interaction early that year. There was a leadership development group meeting, a D group.
What happened there?
Harding voiced his concerns, the lack of promised team members, the financial strain in Atlanta.
How was that received?
Badly. He was basically called a whiner, told to just figure it out himself.
Ouch.
Yeah. And the timeline also mentions even though Ron had expertise in cyber ministry, they were often shut out of meetings about it.
So their input wasn't valued, maybe deliberately ignored.
That's the pattern it suggests. Their concerns dismissed, their contributions sidelined.
The timeline mentions McKean rebuking someone else, though, Matt Sullivan.
Yes. February 2019. After an Atlanta service, McKean publicly called out Matt Sullivan for not sending capable mission team members to help the Hardings.
Interesting. So maybe some awareness at the top about the struggles, but maybe not the full picture.
Perhaps. Or maybe sending mixed signals. Hard to say.
Then, March 2019. This sounds really serious. How the church stuff started directly hurting Ron's relationship with Dylan.
Yeah, this is rough. Ron voiced concerns about Dylan's leadership training. He rebuked Joey Gregory, who was involved.
Okay.
Then, apparently following instructions from Tim Kernan, Joey tells Dylan he can't share any ministry information with his dad anymore.
What? Cut off communication about ministry between father and son.
Exactly. And the timeline specifically says this had a profound negative impact on their relationship for almost 6 years. Created this huge barrier.
That's devastating. Using church structure to damage family bonds.
It appears that way. And the resource problems in Atlanta just kept going. Personnel issues.
They didn't get the people they needed.
Well, in June 2019, they were expecting maybe 8 leaders, people who'd help with ministry and finances. Instead, they got one couple.
Just one.
One couple described as expensive. So while they helped with ministry, their higher cost actually made the money problems worse.
It sounds like resources weren't being shared equally.
The timeline highlights that perception, that younger, maybe less experienced leaders often got better support packages than the Hardings did.
Okay, so moving into the next period, 2021 to 2023, the title here is Targeting Hardings, Their Children, and Manipulation. That sets a pretty ominous tone.
It really does. July 2021, the Hardings are asked to lead the D.C. Church, D.C. ICC, and also oversee a network of other churches.
Another big move, big responsibility.
Yes. And McKean lays out a plan involving their son Dylan and his wife Jasmine. They're supposed to lead a church plant in D.C. under the Hardings.
Okay, so working together as a family sounds potentially good.
Potentially. But when they get to D.C., they find out the church is in a big financial hole due to previous spending.
So they walk into another financial mess. Inherited problems.
Exactly. Starting behind the 8 ball again.
And the plan with Dylan and Jasmine, did that run into trouble too?
It seems so. June 2022. Harding arranges for some Black members to go support the ministry in L.A.
Okay.
But the promised return transfer of light-skinned members to D.C., it just didn't happen.
Wait, light-skinned members?
Yeah.
That sounds problematic. Discriminatory.
It raises serious questions about equity, yeah.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there are conflicting messages about where Dylan and Jasmine should go. D.C. with the Hardings, or Tallahassee for something else.
More confusion. And Kernan again?
Kernan again says the conflicting directive is above his pay grade. Just lack of clarity or maybe deliberate obfuscation.
It really feels like inconsistency, maybe even discrimination, was influencing these moves.
Yeah.
Then Tracy Harding finally gets to speak in Johannesburg after years of cancellations.
Yes. 9 years of invitations that kept getting pulled back. Finally, September 2022, she speaks at a Women's Day event there.
Why the previous cancellations?
The timeline notes the McKeans preferred Leanne Kernan, but apparently Elena McKean convinced Patrick Smelly to invite Tracy this time.
And their time in Johannesburg uncovered some other major issues, ethical ones.
Big time. October 2022, they meet with the church administrator and a local shepherding couple there. They raise alarms about these past studies, extra studies being done with African members before the standard discipleship study.
Yeah, because your studies, why?
Apparently, these studies pushed discriminatory ideas, like that all Africans were inherently dishonest and needed this extra teaching to become truthful enough for salvation.
That's appalling.
The local leaders felt it was deeply discriminatory and was actually stopping people from getting baptized. The Hardings agreed.
So what did they do?
They refused to use those studies in their own ministry, though they acknowledged the Smellies, who oversaw Johannesburg, could lead their church as they saw fit.
Wow. Taking a stand against potentially racist practices, directly challenging the overseeing leaders, That must have caused waves.
Huge waves. As soon as they got back, November 1st, 2022, they had this super contentious D-time meeting with Andrew and Patrick Smelly.
ED time, discipleship time.
Yeah. The Smellys were aggressive, accusing Ron of causing division with his sermon, grilling them about their talks in Johannesburg.
And Patrick confronted Tracy about the past studies.
Yes. Accused Tracy of dividing their church by refusing to use them. It got so bad, Ron ended the conversation and stopped communication between Patrick and Tracy.
Intense. How did others react? The Untalons?
Initially, the Untalons supported the Hardings. They apparently acknowledged Patrick had a history of this kind of behavior. But then they flipped, said the Hardings should apologize to the Smellys, and these problems just simmered for months, unresolved.
Sounds like they're being increasingly isolated for taking that stand. And then the focus shifts back to their kids. Early 2023, more manipulation.
Looks like it. February 2023, there's this email thread, title, Complete Unity.
Okay.
But it seems it was basically manufactured. Created a pretext citing fake unity issues in the Harding family to reverse the plan for Dylan and Jasmine to work with them.
Using unity as a weapon, almost, to justify organizational moves.
Seems like a pattern, at the expense of the family.
And then the comments about their daughter-in-law, March 2023. That sounds awful.
Yeah, Dr. Joe Garman apparently used really offensive, inappropriate language about Jasmine. Ron rebuked him strongly.
Good for him.
Right after that, McKean leaves a voicemail. Decision made. Dylan and Jasmine are moving back to L.A.
And who would they work under?
Jason and Sarah Dimitri, who are being mentored by Jason and Daniela Woody.
Right.
A couple McKean himself had previously called dishonest and selfishly ambitious.
Wait, what? So McKean puts them under people he supposedly distrusts? That makes no sense.
It's a huge contradiction, raises massive questions about his motives, and you'd worry about Dylan and Jasmine's well-being in that situation.
Absolutely. Huge red flag. Did Garman apologize for his comments?
He sent an apologetic text, yeah, but McKean's decision stood. Dylan and Jasmine were going to L.A.
And other decisions were also strange around then. April 2023, about mission teams.
Very strange. McKean announces, unprecedentedly, that no church sending mission teams would send anyone that year. 0.
Across the board, what?
No clear reason given. And when Harding offered to send the D.C. team anyway, McKean refused, said it would hurt the D.C. church.
But didn't other places need teams? It feels inconsistent.
Highly inconsistent, raises questions about the real reasons behind it.
And the back and forth with Dylan and Jasmine just continued. May 2023, more confusion.
Total confusion. Garman contradicts McKean's unity issues claim. Garman even offers to send Dylan and Jasmine to D.C. with the Hardings.
Okay, maybe a resolution.
Nope. McKean overrides him, says the kids need to heal, be with friends in L.A.
Heal from what? The stress McKean himself caused with the fake unity issues.
That's what the timeline suggests. And at the same time, McKean is giving them money for Jasmine's skin condition, which the stress likely worsened, and for debt relief.
So, causing problems with one hand, giving money with the other, sounds like control, manipulation.
It paints a very complex, potentially manipulative picture, yes.
Yeah.
Then, June 2023, a bombshell from someone inside Jason Dimitri's circle.
What was it?
A former associate contacts Ron Harding, reveals this plan to install COPS leaders everywhere.
COPS leaders.
Yeah, people who'd run ministry exactly how Kip McKean wanted. The goal, get control of enough churches, their money.
To do what?
To push out older members, longtime disciples who weren't fully on board with this vision.
Wow, an internal power grab. Disregarding years of people's lives and contributions.
That's what it sounds like. A potential shift in the whole movement's direction, driven by internal politics.
And this seems to come to a head in July 2023 at that conference in Mexico.
Exactly. Big drama. At a board meeting, McKean puts Dylan and Jasmine on probation.
Okay, probation.
But privately, the timeline says he's telling people they're actually fired.
Two different stories.
Yeah.
Then Raul Moreno announces they're going to D.C. with the Hardings.
Yes. Publicly announces it, but Ron Harding predicts McKean will overturn it.
And did he?
He did. Tragically, Ron was right. Tim Kernan later tells Harding the real reason the kids were being fired.
Which was?
It wasn't about their performance. It was to hurt Ron, to control Ron.
Oh my God. Using his children specifically to wound and manipulate him, that's beyond cruel.
Devastating for a parent to hear. And the meeting after that sounds explosive.
When Harding told the kids.
Yeah. They didn't believe him at first. Then this meeting with Moreno and Jason Dimitri, accusations flying. Dimitri calls Harding a hypocrite.
Tensions must have been sky high.
Off the charts. Harding apparently got so angry he made a verbal threat towards Dimitri.
Whoa.
Moreno tried to calm things with scripture, but then Dylan, he just stood up, said he wanted his dad to train him, and he and Jasmine walked out.
Wow. A powerful statement from Dylan.
Absolutely. Sticking by his dad despite everything.
But even after that incredibly raw, painful confrontation, McKean acts completely differently in public.
It's bizarre. The very next day at the ICCM graduation rehearsal, McKean goes up to Harding, calls him a trusted brother, asks for help managing Tim Kernan regarding Dimitri.
The disconnect is staggering. Private, undermining, public facade of trust.
It really reveals the complexity and maybe the duplicity involved.
And the Dylan and Jasmine situation wasn't over yet. Another meeting.
Another meeting. McKean, Dimitri, Dylan, Jasmine. McKean talks mostly to Jasmine about her medication.
Oh, okay.
Then reverses the firing again. Now it's 6 months probation, back in L.A. Asks Dylan how he feels.
How did Dylan feel? Probably confused, angry.
Understandably confused is what the timeline says, given everything that just happened.
And the final confrontation, right before that Sunday service, July 31st.
Yeah.
That feels like the breaking point for Ron Harding.
It seems like it. McKean tells Harding the kids are staying in L.A., demands Harding accept it.
And Harding.
He refuses, defiantly says, they'll be with me in DFW by the end of the year, whether you like it or not.
Wow. Direct defiance.
McKean was furious. And then came this orchestrated wave of concern.
What do you mean?
Various leaders started approaching Harding, one after another, saying almost the exact same thing. We're worried about you.
Like reading from a script.
Harding saw right through it, recognized it as pressure tactics. And then adding to the drama, Tim Kernan just bolts. After a meeting with McKean and others, he takes his family straight to the airport way earlier than planned.
Something spooked him. Or just part of the theater. Hard to know.
Hard to know, but very dramatic.
And Dylan and Jasmine, back in L.A., it wasn't easy for them.
No. They apparently got berated constantly by leaders there for even thinking about going to DFW with the Hardings.
Just punishment for loyalty to family.
It seems that way. After 3 months of this tough probation, they were told they'd be fired, so they chose to resign instead. October 2023.
And did they end up in Dallas-Fort Worth?
Yes. Ron finally convinced them. They moved in with Ron and Tracy in November 2023.
Okay, that brings us to the final, really intense section, whistleblowing and investigation, starting March 2024. After all this, Harding decides he has to act more forcefully.
It appears so. March 2024, links to pornography get sent from Kip McKean's personal Facebook account.
From McKean's account, publicly.
That's what the timeline states. Harding confronts McKean directly, initiates that Matthew 18 process, the biblical steps for confrontation.
And McKean's response?
Terse. Just, I'll talk to Tony.
And Tony Untalon.
Well,
His response must have been crucial for Harding.
absolutely. Untalon admits it. That 2013 leadership meeting about the initial discovery never happened.
Confirm the cover-up from the start.
Yes. And worse, Untalon apparently admitted he'd made plans to wipe McKean's computer.
Wipe the evidence. Okay, that had to be it for Harding. The final straw confirming a pattern of concealment.
It seems to have solidified his resolve. He escalated, contacted Moreno, Untalon, Causey, then sent a detailed email to all the world sector leaders.
Putting it all out there to the top leadership. How did they react?
McKean called an emergency meeting, publicly called the porn links an allegation.
Downplaying it.
Yeah. But then Harding was actually tasked with investigating McKean's emails and documents as McKean was supposedly preparing to step down.
So they asked the whistleblower to investigate the person he was blowing the whistle on?
Ironic, isn't it? But during this time, McKean allegedly tries to twist the narrative, using Harding's own texts out of context.
Trying to discredit him.
And reportedly telling other leaders, destroy Harding's evidence, threatening excommunication if they didn't comply.
Obstruction of justice. Witness tampering. That sounds incredibly serious.
Extremely serious accusations, yes.
Right.
Deliberate attempts to suppress evidence, control the story.
And during this investigation Harding was asked to do, he found more. Financial stuff.
Yes. Potential financial irregularities, serious enough that Harding told the church he thought he needed legal counsel.
And McKean still wouldn't step back.
Refused. So Harding told Raul Moreno, okay, I have to go external now.
And he did. He went outside the church.
He did. Moreno confirmed McKean wasn't stepping down. So Harding contacted a Maryland state senator. He'd apparently promised the senator he'd let them know if serious issues came up.
What did he tell the senator?
Reported the potential white-collar financial crimes he'd found, said he needed a lawyer.
And that set off a chain reaction.
Big time. The senator contacted their child, who was connected to the Smellies, someone named James. Word got back quickly. And shortly after that, Kip McKean stepped down.
Wow. So external pressure finally worked. What was the official reason given?
The announcement on May 1st, 2024, said he was retiring due to spiritually faltering.
Spiritually faltering. Okay. But the stress of all this, it took a huge toll on Ron Harding's health.
A devastating toll. May 2nd, the day after the announcement, Harding suffered a ruptured ulcer.
Oh, no.
Required hospitalization. He actually flatlined in the ambulance.
He nearly died.
It sounds like it. And the aftermath is significant medical debt, lifelong autoimmune conditions, a direct result of the intense stress.
Just horrific. And even while he's dealing with his health crisis, the church stuff continues.
Unbelievably, yes. From his hospital bed, Harding finds evidence that McKean had instructed people to delete evidence, made those threats of excommunication.
While Harding is fighting for his life, they're still trying to cover tracks.
That's what the timeline suggests. Then the church lawyers send Harding a formal demand letter. Give us back all the electronic information, the ESI.
Even though they knew he planned to give it to law enforcement.
He acknowledged his intention to give it to law enforcement in the letter, yes. They also sent demands for confidentiality agreements. Harding saw these as retaliation for whistleblowing.
But he still tried to share his findings with the church leadership, despite everything.
He did. Late May 2024, via Zoom, he gave his first report to the ICC leadership and their lawyers.
And what did he emphasize?
His moral and legal duty as a whistleblower to preserve the evidence. He even mentioned the FBI had advised him not to return evidence directly to the church.
So he was in contact with the FBI?
Yes, he had proffer talks with the FBI in June 2024, outlining what he knew.
Okay, the final stretch.
Yeah.
August 2024 to April 2025. Escalation, termination. It didn't end with McKean stepping down.
Not at all. Mid-August, the FBI directs Harding to local law enforcement. By late October, 3 different lawsuits are active against the church in discovery phase.
So legal pressure is mounting. Harding gets approved for a sabbatical.
Yes. But then he finds out crucial evidence wasn't submitted in those cases, and he believes the church is creating a false narrative.
So what does he do?
He decides to leak documents, starts posting relevant stuff on social media early November 2024. He also files a police report against McKean then.
Taking it public, how did the church respond?
Jason Dimitri puts out a video. Transparency, it was called. Harding felt it was misleading.
Did Harding respond to the video?
He offered to explain his actions publicly. His sabbatical finally gets approved. Then he leaks more emails to counter Dimitri's video.
And the church's response to that?
Termination. Early December 2024, Raul Moreno fires both Ron and Tracy Harding.
Fired after everything. What were the terms offered?
Separation agreements demanding all evidence back, strict non-disparagement, total confidentiality.
Trying to buy silence and get the evidence back?
That's how Harding interpreted it.
And the fallout continued. Legal battles, personal hardship?
Absolutely. Problems getting unemployment, filed complaints with EEOC, OSHA, then the NLRB.
Government agencies.
Yes. The church demands church property back. Harding responds by posting more documents online, highlighting the threats, the inconsistencies.
He wasn't backing down. There was also something about rumors, private videos.
Yeah, Beach Eastwood messaged him about rumors, including alleged private videos. Harding acknowledged the videos existed, expressed regret for not blowing the whistle sooner, said he wanted the best for everyone but knew there'd be consequences.
And the situation in the Orlando church, that sounds significant too.
Big split there. After leaders denied financial wrongdoing, a large group left. They contacted Harding.
And he helped them.
He gave them documents backing up their concerns, spoke at their meetings, presenting evidence that contradicted the official story.
So he became a source for others questioning the leadership.
Exactly. But the church leadership, or their lawyers, kept coming after him. They filed a theft report against him.
Theft for holding on to the evidence he was supposed to preserve.
Alleging he stole electronic files, hardware. But the police investigated. Detective Williams in Fort Worth. Closed the case. Unfounded. Noted Harding cooperated, was willing to return items once identified, and clearly had no intent to steal. He was preserving evidence as instructed by law enforcement.
Vindicated on that front. But the legal maneuvering continued. Subpoenas.
Yeah, the church lawyers fought hard to quash a subpoena issued to Harding in one of the lawsuits.
Did they succeed?
The court did grant the motion to quash, unfortunately limiting discovery, and the NLRB case dismissed.
Why?
The ministerial exception, that legal shield for religious institutions regarding employment law.
Oh, So limited legal recourse for him there.
His lawyer advised filing anyway, just to create a record. And the timeline ends, very sadly, with Ron and Tracy Harding filing for bankruptcy in March 2025.
Just highlighting the incredible personal and financial cost of this whole ordeal.
Truly devastating.
Okay, wow. That is an incredibly detailed and troubling timeline. As we look back over everything, these major themes you identified earlier really stand out, don't they?
They absolutely do. First, this clear pattern of cover-up, right from the start, with the 2013 discovery about McKean and the repeated attempts to hide things.
And the manipulation of family relationships, it's just brutal. Using the kids, interfering, it's deeply disturbing.
It really is. Then there's the potential financial misconduct. Questions about mission funds, housing, debt payments, things McKean himself apparently condemned in the past.
Right, and the blatant retaliation against whistleblowers. Firing Harding, the public excommunication, the legal threats, it's textbook retaliation.
Textbook. Tied into that is institutional protection. The priority seemed to be protecting the church's reputation, even if it meant deleting evidence or silencing dissent.
And using the ministerial exception as a legal shield. That's a key point, too, how that doctrine can impact accountability.
Definitely. We also saw clear examples of potential racial discrimination. Those awful past studies, the whole light skin versus black members issue.
Yeah, that was shocking. And finally, the systematic isolation. Pushing the Hardings away from their support network whenever they raised concerns or challenged the leadership.
All these themes are just woven throughout the entire timeline. It's not just one bad incident. It's a pattern playing out over years.
It really is striking how it all connects. One thing leads to another, creating this, well, this whole disturbing narrative. Some details just stick with you, don't they?
For sure.
Like that initial naming convention for the files, so specific, so calculated, or the Gestapo-style description of those meetings, just chilling.
And the way they targeted his relationship with his son, that feels particularly cruel.
Yeah, and then being fired after decades of service, after being asked to investigate.
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
This deep dive, pulling all these threads from the timeline together, it really gives you a concentrated look at a very complex, very long, very difficult story.
It provides a stark picture, that's for sure. A condensed understanding of Ron Harding's journey as a whistleblower.
And hopefully, for you listening, it offers some insight.
It absolutely does. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About power dynamics inside institutions, especially faith-based ones. About the incredible courage and the immense risks involved in being a whistleblower.
The personal cost can be enormous.
Enormous. And it makes you ponder that complex intersection of faith, accountability, and, well, the instinct for self-preservation within organizations. Ron Harding's story, laid out like this, really forces you to think about those bigger questions, doesn't it? What happens when accountability clashes with authority?